Always happy to be talking to my next guest, Gerald Meerschaert. Another big fight coming up here. Reinier De Ridder, welcoming him to the UFC Fight Night, November 9th. Gerald, how you doing, man?
I've been great, James. How you been?
Been awesome. Another big opportunity. I remember you had to fight Hamzat Chimaev, and now here you are welcoming Reinier De Ridder to the UFC. How did this all come together? When did you find out?
I found out pretty quick after my last fight. I want to say like maybe 2 weeks after or something like that. We had actually got to train together a little bit at Kill Cliff, and that was kind of the original plan, is he was going to come down by us to train for camps. But he got offered that fight, and when the UFC comes calling, you generally don't want to start off your career by saying no. So I definitely understand taking the fight, and it was a matchup that I like. So we'll get this one out of the way, and then we'll probably be training partners after that.
Yeah, that's interesting that obviously you guys have trained together a little bit. Maybe it's just, I don't know, they like the style matchup or whatever. But does this remind you a bit of the Chimaev fight from a few years ago? Obviously, he has 2 losses, but he's a guy that also has a lot of hype coming over from one championship.
I can see both sides of that, because if he wins and they want to invest in him, there's someone there that's you get fresh into the mix. But on the same hand, I could see them giving him to me just on the I do like to derail hype trains. Obviously, I didn't with Chimaev, but like, how great would it for them to have their guy, who's a submission guy, beat ONE FC's double champ, so they can be like, see, our guys are better. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
actually, that's a good point.
they can
Yeah.
they can play off either way of that. I don't know if that's the reason why. There's certainly on paper tougher matchups they could have given them, to your point, but either way, I'm here for it.
Yeah, and you've been the underdog so many times, including your last fight. Like it's something that's been throughout your whole career. So I'm sure from that perspective, that this is nothing new, being counted out.
Yeah, no, I would be amazed if I was a betting favorite in this fight. I can almost guarantee that I'll be a pretty heavy underdog.
Yeah, we haven't got. I don't think the odds are out yet. We'll have to have a look. So stylistically, you know him a bit, obviously, because you guys train. But how are you looking at this fight stylistically? Obviously, your jiu-jitsu off the charts, and you got some good striking as well.
Yeah, I mean, training you can only take so much from, because it's just training, and a fight is a whole different animal. But just looking at the fights, he has, his game plan basically every single fight is get the fight to the ground, and then start to pass and try to take the back or get some kind of like front headlock choke locked up. And he has some sneaky submissions too. We saw that like reverse or inverted triangle that he got in ONE FC. That was pretty slick. He fought a teammate of mine a couple times. So he has some really good wins. He has recent losses, but against another guy who had multiple belts in that same organization. But I don't think he's going to try and stay on the feet the whole time. If he does, that's cool. But if you have all those wins and you're basically only winning by submission, and with me, it's a little bit different, right? Sometimes I'll stay on the feet for a while, and then I'll get a submission once I wear a guy down. And then, there are some fights too, like my Barberena fight, where it's very clear that I'm going to shoot right away and try and get it to the floor. With De Ridder, it's pretty much cut and dry what you're going to get. He wants to lock up. He wants to take you down. If you land something on the feet, it's not that he's not going to throw or that he's not dangerous. Anybody with 4-ounce gloves can put anybody to sleep. But generally, the game plan for him is get the fight to the floor and then work from there.
You mentioned your teammate Aslan Long, who fought him, I think, a couple times. Do you get a lot of? I know you guys are different fighters, but do you get a lot of insight for him because he's been in there with him a few times?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he had some pointers, and the big thing is like, don't let him hold you on the ground.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit different. I have I have offense off my back. I can wrestle off the bottom. There's different things I can do, so it's not like it's going to be one-sided if it goes to the ground. Obviously, I got slick submissions. I would say, even just looking at fights, I'm probably more of like a MMA jiu-jitsu guy. Like, I have a lot of submissions, but I mix in a lot more wrestling and striking and kind of getting dirty with my grappling, whereas he's more of a traditional like jiu-jitsu guy. I think that'd be fair to say. And that's, if it goes to the ground, it'll be kind of a, can he stay tight and do the step-by-step passes, and try to keep me confined, or can I make space and like do some damage and wrestle my way back up, or stay on top and like strike enough to keep him off me?
Killcliff's obviously a huge gym. Who have been some of the main guys that are helping you get ready for this fight? Which is, I kind of think about it as a little bit short notice, right? Because you didn't find out about this that long ago, right?
Oh no, well,
I
mean,
guess
for
since
me,
your
it's
last fight,
plenty
so
of
maybe
notice,
you
yeah.
has had. Yeah, I was gonna say, okay, gotcha. Because I'm just thinking because the night's coming up here pretty soon. So
Yeah, no, it was a quick turnaround. I mean, I'm fighting pretty much 3 months back to back, so I
yeah,
wouldn't,
it's
it's
not
not
short
short
notice,
notice.
but it is still a quick turnaround too, right? Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. Like pretty much, a week or two after the fight, I knew I was fighting again. So, enough time to like take a break for a week and then get back into a full camp. So
yeah.
I'm happy about that, honestly, especially, it might not have looked like it for a second there, but coming out of that last fight, I didn't really have too much damage. The body shot hurt really bad, but other than that, nothing was sore or jacked up. So that was really good.
Yeah, I just tripped over my own question there. I was asking you who you're working with. I kind of did a two-parter, but yeah, who are you working with? Who are the main guys?
A lot of the same usual characters. There's a lot of guys that have fights coming up. I've got some rounds in with Ong. I got some rounds in with my guy Camille, who's a younger up and comer, just long rangy guy. Um, I've got rounds in with a lot of different. Tuco is another
Yep.
tall European, so that's a good person to have in there. I'll probably have my guy Delano Taylor with me at the fight, so he's
Oh,
another
cool.
rangy fighter who's got some really good grappling that's been good looks for me too. So it's definitely more about like making sure I do what I want to do, but it doesn't hurt to have high level skilled guys that can wrestle and strike really well that are taller.
One thing I don't think a lot of people are talking about is him making 185. I went back and looked because a lot of the one championship weight classes are actually different weight classes. Like they call what they call light heavyweight is actually heavyweight. So I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure the last time he made 185 was in 2018. So is there any concerns there about him missing weight?
Yeah, I mean, he says he can make it. I remember I saw an interview. He said that he walks around, not that big, and he just had to diet for a couple of weeks, which I don't know if I believe that necessarily, but
Yeah.
he's not a small guy, so I think, if he says he can make weight, he can make weight. I definitely think it would affect him more, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I thought that was an interesting part. Obviously, your weight cut's going well. I mean, you always make weight. I don't think you've ever missed weight in the UFC, right? Have you?
No, no,
No.
I've never missed weight in my professional career. There was one time where my transition from 70 to 85, where I gave him plenty of advance notice, but I was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make, what we talked about. It's going to have to be moved to something else.
Yeah.
But I've never said I was going to weigh one thing and then showed up and weighed something else.
Your corner, what will that look like? Who's going to be in the cage with you?
I'll have Jason Strout, Delano Taylor, and Sean Soriano is also
Oh,
going to be in my
nice.
corner.
Good. He's turned into a good coach. How's this one playing out in the ninth? How do you see it going down?
Uh, you know, I'm. It could go a lot of different ways. I'm always preparing myself for an all-out war. But if everything goes according to plan, it ends with me getting my hand raised.
A submission, though, do you think? Because, I mean, that's your thing. I know he's obviously great on the ground, but how much of a statement would that be, especially with your skill set?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, have to see how it plays out. Anytime I say I want to do one thing, something else ends up happening, and most of the time it ends up being a submission. So even if we have a big battle on the feet and I crack him in his neck there, you've seen me do that before where I hurt someone and I jump on the neck. So that's definitely a possibility. I would think if you were going to pick a method of victory, submission would be a pretty safe bet for either of us. Um, but hopefully I can go out there and put on a show. So we'll see what happens.
So if you beat De Ridder, do you then become the one championship, like, double champ status or something? Like, what happens there?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how that works. Well, the guy that got the belts from De Ridder,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
he's
Yeah, I guess he lost them. Yeah, that's right, too. Yeah.
yeah, and he's a little bit heavier, and he looks like he's on some of the Mexican supplements, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
don't know that I could even get that fight, but yeah, I guess that makes me at least, if nothing else, ranked number 2 in ONE FC.
There you go. But the win's got to be big though, because again, there's a lot of hype behind his signing. I know he's a bit older, like he's 34, but that's
Thanks.
it's still no. I'm older than you, so listen, I'm not ageist by any means, but no, I'm just saying in general, like, don't you think because a lot of people are excited about him coming in, if you beat him, you get some of that hype, right?
Yeah, you would think so, but yeah, I don't even think about that kind of stuff. Like for sure, a win like that, I'm definitely gonna tell everyone like, hey, I beat a guy who is super legit, came from somewhere else with multiple belts. Like after that, like give me either give me a fight on a big card or give me somebody with a number next to their name, like something
Yeah.
where I can, and honestly, like in that scenario, like if it was a choice between like say number 13 on an Apex card, unless it was like a main event or something versus, some random person on the main card of a pay-per-view, I would go the pay-per-view just because more eyeballs seem to help more, honestly. Like if you have a good performance and enough people see it, it as much as it's a sport, it's entertainment also. So that seems to matter a little bit more. But yeah, I think after that, something, you know, that would be 3 fights in a row, and that win against a very, very tough, opponent who's, like you said, has a lot of hype. Something we'd have to get something rolling on a little bit higher end opponent there.
Quickly, what did you think of Anthony Hernandez's win last weekend in the main event against Pereira? Because that's obviously your division.
Yeah, man, he looked great. He weathered the storm early, which is the big thing, right? Is like Pereira comes out and he's throwing heat. Kind of gassed himself out, I feel like, but even if he didn't, that's kind of how Anthony Hernandez has fought basically his whole career, right? Like unless you get him out of there early, he's just going to keep going at that pace. And it's not that he's, and I'm sure he says this too. It's not that he's like super athletic or super fast or anything, but he keeps a high pace and it's consistent the entire time. And he's always going to put pressure on you. He's always going to take away space and not let you breathe. And unless you're in really good shape or you got some like really high level unique skills in a certain area to maybe deter him from doing that, it's going to be a long night for you unless, you just hope you get lucky and catch him with one.
Gerald, thanks for doing this. Looking forward to it. UFC Fight Night, November 9th. Anyone you want to thank before we get out of here? I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, thank my teammates, my management, everybody that follows me. Appreciate you guys.